So welcome back to another episode of Rigby's Campfire podcast. We're today sat in our beautiful showroom here in South London at Rigby's. Had many interesting people come through the doors here, and I'm sat today with a very dear friend of mine and one of our directors here at Rigby's. Monty, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about how we know each other, how you fit into the larger Rigby story.
Chief Marc, make me go back over old ground here. I guess we first met when I walked into Paul Roberts' old workshop many moons ago, nearly 20 years ago. And I was leaving the army at the time, got my first firearm certificate and was seeking advice as to how to fill that. And you sold me a gun I still have today and cherish, my Tikka T3, the one you rib me about all the time. But very shortly, I'll be getting my first Highland Stalker, I think, which is something definitely to look forward to. I guess, you initially sold me a gun, and it wasn't long after that before we somehow became friends, meeting down the pub, going out shooting, just having similar interests in life and similar, I think, morals and general compass of life as well, which always helps when you're starting off with a friendship, which eventually becomes a very deep and true friendship. I nearly said loving, but I thought it was too much for a podcast.
We won't edit that out, don't worry.
So yeah, I mean, look, we started off hanging out together and going shooting over in Suffolk and all sorts of places, really, West Sussex as well. And generally, my passion for the sport grew, our friendship grew, and then we started having families, and our children have got to know each other and growing up together at very similar ages, and spending quality time, as they would say, holidays, stalking trips, all that sort of stuff just out together, which almost by osmosis, you meet somebody one day and 20 years later, you don't think on a daily basis how close your friendship has become. But I'm pleased to say that. And moreover, perhaps, over the years, I've certainly known Rigby's throughout the time that you've owned it. I remember helping you clear out some store covers at Paul's when we were moving, or you were moving, and then just watched you set this up from nowhere, really, with a handful of stockists and metal workers, and no order book at all, and beads of sweat on your brow most days, I'm sure, back then. But seeing that just slowly tick away, and then all of a sudden just really escalate to where it is today, through tons and tons of hard work, but obviously with a tremendous product to back that up. Now, I've looked vicariously at Rigby's for many years, like I say, and then about nearly 2 years ago, you approached me and asked if I'd like to move away from the boring, normal, steady, safe corporate world that I was in. And offer me a job over here. So I've come in. I'm very happily taken over, your director of operations role. Crucial to see you building your team as you need it to be moving forward. Not taking anything away from where you had it previously, of course, but as you've got bigger, as your order books got bigger, as your commitments have become more solidified, and we really need to deliver on everything that we say to the customers we're going to deliver, then obviously you need to strengthen that team, and that makes perfect sense, and it's the right thing to do, and it's the right time to do it. You've constantly, again, with respect, I've looked at Rigby's and seen you not overstepping your mark, always being slightly reserved in terms of how forward you are. It's very easy to get huge mortgages, to employ hundreds of employees, but if you don't do that at the right time, you end up watering down your product and charging the customers more. So you've always been very, very clever about just doing these things at the right time. And I really do respect that in that.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think there's this sort of often said saying that, there's sort of work life and then there's home life. And I've long had the belief that that's not true, that there is just life. Now, with that, there's a caveat. You can't just bring any friend into a business. You've got to be very, very careful. That has to be a very special and unique friendship to be able to be friends first and then be able to work together. But, we've known each other, as you said, for a long time. And I suppose from my side, I saw all of the investment that went into you in your army days, how well you carried yourself, you know, in your professional life, in our friendship, those sorts of things. And as I saw Rigby's in the last, over the last 10, 11 years, go from an itty bitty startup to now becoming more and more professionalized. I never want us to, of course, lose that rustic, real, authentic vibe, which I think resonates with a lot of people with Rigby's. But to be able to bring you on board to, take the whole thing to the next level has been, a real privilege. And the last 2 years has been a remarkable sort of step up with that. So, you're very much to be commended on that. And also, it's, again, probably saying too much here, but if you spend most of your working life, most of your life when you're working, hours and hours and hours around people you're with, probably more than your family at certain times of the year. So why not be with people who you trust, who you really get along with, who share that same sort of outlook of the world? It's not just yourself, Simon, our head of marketing, there's other people here. It is a real tribe, a real sort of family feeling at Rigby's.
No, absolutely, Mark. And again, testament to Rigby's is a lot of those people that are taking those more senior roles these days are people that started off at different positions in the company and they've progressed naturally or with a bit of coaching to now be in charge of production or in charge of engraving or workshops or whatever it be. So we're not just getting somebody in and that's their life for the next 20 or 30 years or whatever. There is a natural progression based on their skill set and where they fit best for their own gratification at work. Like you say, we spend a lot of time here. But also, for the company's gratification as well.
No, and I say this all the time, that the Rigby is all about people. The people in the company, the people who've brought the company to where it is now over the past 250 years, the Jim Corbett's, the J.A. Hunters, the people who've carried these weapons, the people who've made these rifles. It's a pretty remarkable story. And I think where we've connected with people and where we've seen this sort of real drive forward with the company is making sure that's absolutely core to everything that we do. That if you took the people out of here, we've got nothing. There is no company.
Absolutely, and I hope in another 150, 250 years or whatever, people will be harking back to the team as it was here. And what a great job they did as custodians of that period of Rigby's history.
No, very much. Well, talking about 150, 250 years ago, we have some interesting artifacts sat about our persons here. We have a couple of Rigby cannons. These actually fire, as you know, you've seen them fired at the range. We had Don Jr. with us firing one a few months ago, which was a lot of fun, used for sort of more ceremonial purposes. Sure. But it ties in very nicely with something we've been planning to celebrate something very special.
Well, absolutely. So I think I'd been through the door about 5 minutes when you offered me this nice little project to look at. And, you and Simon came up with this unbelievable idea of how we should celebrate 250 years of Rigby's. Very easy to go down the, big celebration in a pub or a restaurant or a hotel or something like that. But that's not the Rigby way. So the
Rigby way, and I'm going to try not to swear here, is bite off more than you can chew and chew like... It seems to work. It's suddenly got us this far.
But what a better way to celebrate 250 years as to demonstrate what 250 years looks like, smells like, feels like. If you could stand back 250 years, what would the founder have seen? So through a early morning gym session in a hotel during the show season.
Well, we weren't in the gym. So just very quickly, we had.
I was trying to fluff you up.
In the early days of Rigby's, we didn't have anything. I mean, there was, we had very limited money trying to get things started. Of course, Germany then came along and really sort of helped support us with that. But from the very beginning, we fought for every pound in the business. And that meant when we went away to do shows, we'd always share rooms. You get a room with 2 beds, and it's a tradition which has remained to this day. Whenever we go to the American shows, we all double up. And for now, it's of course not so much about saving money, it's more about spending time with one another. We talked before about it being about people. Some of the best ideas have come at 3 a.m. when you're jet lagged and you wake up in Las Vegas at SHOT Show or wherever it is you might be, SCI, and one of you says, hey, have you thought about X or have you thought about Y? And so you said we're in the gym, we're actually in, in separate beds. I'm going to just add that in the room, and Simon rolls over at 2, 3 in the morning and he says, the 250, have you thought about HMS Victory? And Simon and I have had this long, silly thing that we always decided if ever we made it in life, that we'd always wanted to have like a 12-course tasting menu dinner in Nelson's cabin for the two of us. I mean, completely ridiculous, over the top. So I said to him, forget that, that's a silly pipe dream. He said, no, listen to me. And within 30 minutes, I knew exactly what we were going to do for the event. Sorry.
No, it's funny how things just align sometimes, and we quite often say that in work, don't we? It sounds like the universe is talking to us. We're like wanting to be too far apart about it, but I think there's something in that, and like you say, that only comes about because you spend time with people, you talk, you communicate, you bash ideas around, off which 90% are ridiculous, but occasionally the right one lands. But you're going to get there if you keep doing it. But anyway, so you say the idea came about, but back to my point of that touching, feeling, smelling thing, I think it's absolutely right. The Victory then, away from your celebratory dinner for you and Simon, then became crikey, it's the same age as us. The craftsmanship was the same as we're doing.
You say about the universe, we were sort of sat there, Simon's telling me all this, and I said, but if only there was a link, Simon, this is a fabulous idea, and if only there was a link. He said, look it up. So I typed in, what year was HMS Victory ordered or commissioned or whatever you might want to call it, and it was 1758, the same year as our founder, John Rigby.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable.
It's instantly also the same year that Nelson was born, the Admiral of the British fleet.
So taking that and linking the two things together was the perfect synergy, as we've said. So what are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to hammer it up even more and make it more Rigby than just that link. HMS Victory, HMS Warrior, the whole Portsmouth scenario down there is such a testament to Britishness. Of course, we want to celebrate Rigby, and it's only right that we do after 250 years, not for us, but for the company and everyone that's been involved with it throughout its life. But also, to say we exist because we're part of something bigger. And what are we part of that's bigger? Well, we're part of British history in general. We're part of craftsmanship that has been handed down through generations. We're part of the British establishment and, all that sort of pomp and Britishness and everything that makes us want to fly a flag across the world and pretend we still, are that powerful and important. We want to try and say thank you to, or dip a nod to, or in some way just acknowledge that we are part of it. So you're talking to the Portsmouth Harbour people, custodians of such history as well, looking at the partnership we can do with them. How can we really tease this out to be a celebration of everything? So we're like giving away all our ideas and secrets, bringing people into the.
You nearly called it a boat there, and we keep having this argument. It's a ship, and when I've been down at Portsmouth and the fabulous tour guides there have shown me around and said, "What a fabulous boat!" I said, "Quite seriously, no, this is a ship, sir. Same as if you put a cannon on a ship, it becomes a gun. You mustn't refer to it as a cannon." But sorry, you nearly got you.
Yeah, no, bringing people down to Portsmouth Harbour, the historic dockyard, that whole sense of history as soon as you walk through the gate. The gate itself being a testament to what the place is, and being met and escorted through the dockyard with all the bits and pieces around there that remind you of the naval history of the base. Of course, it's a live base as well, so there'll be actual soldiers there or naval personnel there, and live carriers in, etc. So we'll be in amongst all this, but more than that, moving all the way through to HMS Victory, being able to go on to HMS Victory, see it, like I say, touch it, feel it, smell it, and see some of the trades that were used back then. They haven't changed that much, and in many ways not at all. But seeing our gunmakers on board the ship, not reenacting because it's not true, it's real life, but representing the skills that have been passed on throughout that history. Having other icons of Britishness on the dockyard as well. I won't say what they are, Mark, because I'm going to spoil all the surprises as I say, but real icons of Britishness bringing it in with a bit of pomp, bit of ceremony and all that sort of stuff, and then moving up to HMS Warrior, which shows a great transition, away from what is almost alien as a vessel today in Victory to HMS Warrior, which you can see the comparisons in modern ships off the fleet and all that sort of stuff. It's the first steel-hulled ship, yet it also had a wooden hull behind it. It's got sails, and yet it was coal fire. It had cannon or guns, but it also had the howitzer style guns. It's a real transitional piece, which fits so nicely with Rigby's and our Victorian experience of new calibers, new actions, all that sort of thing. Again, bringing us from there to there and then into the future with what we're going to be doing next. Hopefully that will just show everyone almost for want of a better expression, a 360 view of our view of the gun trade and where it sits back then through to the future.
And this isn't just a sort of a gala banquet or a nice little dinner. This is a 7-8 hour journey through Rigby's 250 years using HMS Victory, HMS Warrior as a canvas or as a backdrop for us to then showcase the craft. You talked about that before. One night only. I don't think it's ever happened before. Maybe it will never happen again. Turning HMS Victory into Rigby's workshop with 30 gun makers over the 3 gun decks.
Yeah,
it would be absolutely extraordinary.
I thought of commissioning Lloyd Webber to make a musical of it, but I think what we're doing is probably sufficient.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a spectacle, that's for sure. So you talked before about those craft skills, and that's something we're very passionate about here. Of course, Rigby is all about craft skills. The way we build rifles and guns hasn't materially changed in 3 centuries, same as the other gun making houses. And there's a lovely synergy with 2 things. One of those craft skills of how we build our guns to how Victory was made. But actually there's an interesting opportunity for us here, because in the same way that Rigby's has been restored and resurrected in the past 10 years, Victory is undergoing its own restoration for the next 10 years, as I think it's £45 million, so the cost an extraordinary amount of money for them to refit some of the rotten boards. The ship is sat in dry dock, but the salt air and those things, and this is a ship that's going into its 3rd century. These things need to be maintained, and there's bits of wood coming off and new bits going on. And again, the craft skills by the shipwrights haven't materially changed. They're the same techniques that they would have done when Victory was first made.
Absolutely. Okay. We're lucky to be able to go down and spend some time with those people occasionally as well. And the passion from not just the chaps I'm about to mention, but the custodians of Victory, the trustees that look after the best interest of Victory, the people that represent the entertainments and the events side of the dockyard itself. They've all got huge passion for what they're holding on to as much as we have for Rigby's, but where you can really see it, I think, is what we're talking about is the skills of those tradesmen that are working on there with what seems to be anyway huge amount of passion. And like you say, that it's not using modern techniques to keep something afloat. It is going back to the original skills, the original tools, all that sort of type, and putting that back on. So near us, damn it, you are repairing rather than replacing that ship. And without wanting to be too emotive about it, I do think that's kind of our feeling towards Rigby's. I said we are custodians. You've said that plenty of times historically, but we are always looking for new and better ways of producing stuff and not turning our back on anything that could save time or expense for the client or just do it a little bit better. But that is always to say that the outcome needs to come first. And, Martin or anyone like that would never let us do something to wood that was going to jeopardize or diminish from its quality, its strength, its finish. But if there was something we could adopt in order to make that process slicker or better, then it would. And I think, as I say, with the transition from Victory to Warrior, it's exactly the same as they would have done back then. They didn't move to coal-fired ships or howitzers because they fancied a change. They did it because they saw an advantage strategically, tactically, or just efficiently to make it worthwhile putting that effort in to design, to think, to plan how they would progress what they were doing. So I think there's so many synergies, across the whole of the story, really.
Absolutely. And we have something extremely precious, I think is the right word, behind us here. And I keep finding myself walking in here and putting my hand on it, because you talked before about the rich history of these isles, of Britain, and how Rigby and Victory are interwoven into that tapestry. And to have a piece of that history here, with Rigby's itself, but something from Victory, this is a real honour to have this here. Why don't you tell us about the piece of, a very normal looking piece of wood behind us, but with a phenomenal history to it?
Yeah, well, I don't think they would probably mind me saying that the custodians of HMS Victory, we had to prize this off them. Rightly so, they're very precious of everything on the ship and everything that comes off the ship, and they want to put it back into best use,
absolutely,
however that might be. So, we had to ask a lot of questions and be really challenged, both from ourselves and from them, as to how we might use something if we managed to get it off the ship. So this, we're very lucky to have, is a piece of wood that has been on Victory for God knows how many years, but certainly decades and decades. And it's come off as part of the recent renovation project because of the obvious wear and tear to it, as you say, testament to where it is and the fact that it's on the seafront. But we thought there's an opportunity to do something fantastic with this, which ties in not just the ship and all that sort of stuff, but brings in Rigby's event to a real piece of iconic Britishness. So we've been given this tremendous piece of wood off HMS Victory by the custodians at the historic dockyard, and we are going to place that into a really special rifle which we're producing for the event. We're going to call it the Victory rifle. It's going to have a section of this wood in the fore end, in the shape of a V, the same typeset that is on the Victory on the back of the ship, and it will really set it aside not only as a unique piece of our history, but tying it into the night, tying it into Victory itself, and letting people buy into that little bit of the story, and of course help the restoration project as well, because we're giving a small donation from each rifle sold to the, like you say, the 40 odd million pounds they have to try and gather in order to keep this within the British population's ability to go and visit it on a soggy Sunday afternoon through the next couple of generations.
Well, it's something, we're so passionate about here. Of course, the restoration of Rigby's over the last 10 years, running this as of course, this is a commercial enterprise, but it's so much more than that. It's a living, breathing museum. And we've had many different projects. I don't know if there's any behind you there, but different rifle releases that we've done that have supported different conservation projects around the world. Habitat for Rhino in Namibia, for example, supporting these iconic species. And whilst this is, not a creature, an animal that needs protecting, it is a national icon. It's a national treasure. There's something very special, I think, about the fact that it's made of thousands and thousands and thousands of oak trees, which are living things that have been, cut down and used over the centuries to produce this historic ship. And we talked about before, it needs investment. It needs passion. Those guys at the harbour there who are understandably and rightfully so deeply protective of this. That's the only way that these things, again, like Rigby's, can be kept for the next generation. But to be invited to use this, to be able to raise some money for their restoration project is a huge honour, and very much at the heart of what we do here.
And, this is English oak off the ship. Sad state of affairs in Britain at the moment is they don't have enough oak to replace all the pieces they're putting on it. So there's at least a proportion of what they're about to put back on as part of that restoration will actually come from France, which is
so ironic given the Battle of Trafalgar.
I'm sure Lord Nelson would be proud that it was just being maintained and they didn't care where it came from. But, like I say, to take this off there, be given it, it's one of the last times that you can guarantee you're going to get a piece of English oak off it, is my point, really.
Yeah.
It's tremendous.
And I suppose this project, it really does, not just the piece of wood here with the rifles, but everything we're doing, it forever links HMS Victory and John Rigby gunmakers together forever. You know, this is a truly remarkable milestone for the company, and I think it is a spectacle. You know, it was a bit of theatre.
I think the other thing actually, which has been fascinating, is since getting this into the showroom and passing it around the workshop and letting everyone see it, touch it, all that sort of stuff, it's really inspired a lot of people to come up with great ideas as to not just the Victory rifle, but other exhibition pieces we might make throughout the next year. Really to showcase what they as craftsmen are able to do with, you know, some pretty rudimentary materials, to be quite frank, you know. But you know, it's going to be tremendous to see all the outputs.
And we talked about before that this event, it's like getting, someone described it to me the other day, getting Harry Potter's Hogwarts letter through the post, or the Willy Wonka golden ticket. There are only 250 spaces for this big dinner we're having, this journey through Rigby's history. Of course, it's so important to us to have every member of Rigby staff there, and Traditional English Gun Cases, our other sister company. You know, really important that those guys are present, and lots of other people from the industry and clients and things. There's 10,000, we keep joking about this, there's 10,000 people that would like to be at this event, and only so few spaces. And whilst we wish we could have 50 nights to be able to celebrate this, it's you know,
Wembley Stadium doesn't have the same link as HMS Victory.
It doesn't quite have the same link.
Yeah. We might have been able to get more people, but what we want to do is really showcase this. You know, the reason we're doing podcasts like this, is not everyone's going to be able to attend, but hopefully be able to at least share a little bit of what we're trying to achieve with the wider audience.
Yeah, definitely. I think 250 years, it's a huge milestone for the company, quarter of a millennium, and it's a birthday year that, or a year that we want to celebrate with everyone around the world, whether that's, you know, customers in America, trackers in Africa who've hunted with Rigby rifles, PHs in Africa, a 10-year-old boy who walks onto the booth and wants to buy a Rigby cap. You know, everyone who has a connection to this company and its history, next year is all about you and for you.
Absolutely. We quite often say there's no hierarchy in our customer list. You know, everyone is treated the same. We like to think, and hopefully our customers feel that whenever they come and visit, or you know, get on the phone with one of our team and ask any of the questions.
Very good. Well, Monty, thank you for sitting down and talking about Victory with me, and yeah, let's go and make some guns, shall we?
Thank you very much.
Yes.